and Benedict, who's here with us today. So the theme for today, of course, is going to be the luxury market in India. Very exciting topic. And we've got some fabulous people who've been very, very kind to join us this morning. So I'm going to give you a very quick introduction. It's going to go as follows. We just one line to introduce these fabulous people to you. Then I'm going to ask them a few questions related to their experience and their current activities regarding luxury brands in India. And then at the end, we'll have a 10-minute Q&A. So you've got a little hand sticker there, which you can use to put up your questions. My name is Usha. I'm the founder of a brand called Jamini, member of the Chambre de Commerce et d'Industrie Franco-Indienne. And I'm very, very happy to welcome all of you today. And I'm sure that you get a lot of learning from this. So just to quickly pass on to the speakers. Darshan, wonderful to have you here. Darshan is the big star of luxury and lifestyle in India. He heads Reliance Brands Limited and is a friend of friends, friend of Anchal. So I'm very excited to have him with us today. He's been responsible for getting about 85 international brands to India by the way of mergers and franchises. Some of the brands include Tiffany, Burberry, Giorgio Armani, Bottega Veneta, and including brands as well like Pret-a-Manger and Pottery Barn. His experience has been very wide. He's joined the company since it was started in 2007, and he's going to tell us about his experience and his choice of brands and the evolution of physical and online retail. Then we have Philippe with us. Philippe, who's based in Paris, but right now in Bangalore. Very exciting. Philippe has a lot of experience in FMCG. He worked with Unilever for a large number of years. He was director of BCG in France. He's the founder of a fantastic brand that he introduced me to called Unsaid, a lab-grown diamond brand that is doing really, really well here in France. And he's also worked as a consultant. He's an expert in marketing and retail, and he's going to share his experience about luxury in India and also the experience of French brands in India that he's aware of. Anchal, of course, dear friend of mine, professor from IIM, and also the founder, one of the founding partners of Val-More, which is like a boutique consulting firm in premium and luxury brands in India, very well known, handles brands from pret-a-porter to jewelry to watches, right up till real estate. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to start right away because we have so many things to talk about and not enough time. So we'll start with Darshan. Hi, Darshan.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. So first question, which everybody asks, and I ask myself, what is the difference when we talk about the luxury market in India and China?
I don't know what's a congruence other than the fact that we share a common border. I might as well talk about maybe Canada and US or Mexico and US. And honestly, it's just one of those fallacies that is just never kind of goes away. It's a false comparison. China is an extremely developed market. I mean, people here know the numbers. I mean, we just seen results of some of the luxury groups. MS came yesterday, LVMH, blah blah, etc. If it were not for a bit of a prop from Japan and a bit from US, okay, what's happening in China can really dent. India is nowhere by comparison. So I don't think it's even a good point to start. One of the expectation management that very often do is saying when you come to India, don't think of two things. Don't think of 1.4 billion people. It's a big number, but that 1.4 billion doesn't count. Okay, so just leave it away, and please don't think of China. Okay, so moment you get that right, then you'll think of India as India, and you'll neither be underwhelmed nor overwhelmed.
That's why I put the question in so that people know this is not a good question to ask when we approach India.
All right. Also 1.4 billion people, or 1.45 or whatever the number is. Yeah.
Okay, now let's go to the good questions. How does your company, the Reliance Brands, decide which are the right brands that you want to partner with? What are the decision-making criteria, and how do you decide? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a bit of a secret sauce. First of all, I think one of the pride that we have is not the number of brands that we have, etc., but the fact that since I started the company way back in 2007, we've not let go of a single partnership, and that's a matter of pride for us because where we come from, contracts apart, partnerships are for keeps. Okay, and we want to ensure that we have great, fun, productive time with our partners. So when we look at potential partnerships, either proactively or reactively, there are lots of people who approach us because they are suddenly looking at India and on the front burner, India is part of the global heat map, etc., etc. Obviously, then the paths lead willy-nilly to Reliance brands. So there's a lot of proactive conversation brands have with us, but there's also a lot that we approach. Three, four things, I think. First and foremost, the financial salience of our potential partner brand is paramount for us, because everything, the brand, the halo of the brands, and everything that goes with that comes from our partners. And if they are not on financial terra firma, then all our investments, will bring us to grief. And we've had in the past a couple of such incidents. The second is that it must be what I called a global cosmopolitan brand. There are enough brands which are super sharp, but very niche, maybe not for warm weather countries, not designed for multiple seasons, not designed for different body types, all of that, etc. So we look for brands which have a global cosmopolitan mindset in terms of their approach and reach. The third thing is we are a very research oriented company. It's a way of life at Reliance Brands, quality, quantity, all of that, etc. We constantly sharpening what I call the telescope and the microscope. And a lot of brands do come up in our understanding as missing pieces in the canvas as India is building out. And that also gives us a sense that, this could be potentially a brand. And, our business goes across cohorts. We are in beauty, we are in eyewear, we are, of course, in fashion, from handcrafted couture to pret-a-porter. We are also in home, so we are across brands. So we are also looking at from consumer research that brands that frequently show up, on that. And then, of course, with these 3-4 big ticks, we also look for long-term contracts. So out of the partnerships that we have, nearly 25 of them are joint ventures, which are generally what we call by and large perpetual in nature, unless there's a material breach by a partner. If there are distribution type of contracts, they typically tend to be 20 years and plus. So we look for a long runway, because India is still a market which requires a lot of front end, both bandwidth and money investments and high risk investments. The other thing we also look is for some form of commercial symmetry between the two partners, because obviously, the brand belongs, IP belongs to our partners, the product comes from them, etc. We want to make sure that the math works as much for them as for us. So these 5 or 6 are the kind of big ticks. And then, of course, we get down to, to building partner chemistry, all of that. Generally, I also find that somewhere up there in our partners, if there is a big believer in India. So one of my earliest partnerships was, let's say, Jamini. India was a non-existent market, but he told me the story of how he went to China way back in 2001 or thereabouts. And because Gildo Zegna was he was rooting for China in a big way, they had the stomach to survive 10 years of losses in China, after which, of course, the rest, as they say, is history. So generally, a big India champion at a partner's and at a senior level also helps, because India can test the patient.
So out of the very interesting point, so out of the other brands that you brought into India, apart from Zegna, which other brands have been like amazing India champions? Can you just share that with us?
Virtually all of that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Zegna was one of my earliest partnerships. So, but when we started, we do the entire Armani portfolio for argument's sake, etc. There is a deep respect for not the India here and now, because I keep on saying the India here and now can underwhelm you in a very big way, but to see what can be in this market. And that's where we bring in what I call the patient's capital and the patient bandwidth, all of that, etc. But we need a partner who'll say, okay, well, it's a 5-store market, it's a 7-store market. This could be, I mean, so you must compare the, so to say, do all the right comparisons. So by and large, we have been lucky and blessed across our series of, joint ventures, but even in our distribution partnerships, that when my team goes either for buy meetings or marketing meetings, etc., they do give them the degree of respect which is disproportionately larger to the current size of the market here and now.
That's great.
So, and that helps.
Sure. Okay, so let's quickly ask you some of from your experience, because you've probably been the person amongst all of us who've been in this industry for so long. What are the amazing changes you've seen that when you started, and what's happening now, and where you expect things to go in the next 5, 10, 20 years? Can you share that with us? as far as luxury retail is concerned?
So there are lots of enablers, but the end outcome is of course the consumer. So we started setting our eyesights, I remember still, and saying, if I look at the top million, now million is a large number, but it's an insignificant number when you look at the country of this size. Right? I mean, what's a million in India, with this size? But we started setting our sights only on those million people. Today, I can tell you that there are 10 million consumers in India who are what I call habitual buyers of luxury. So there are sporadic buyers of luxury and there are habitual buyers of luxury. And then there are people who are at the cusp, who are what I call flirting with the idea of getting into the club of luxury. And that, of course, is the big news, because that's what makes markets like India exciting, because what is at the cusp and what could be in the next 5 years, and the new plethora of new blood coming into the market, etc. But for me, to have in absolute terms, not relative to the India's population, but in absolute terms, 10 million people, which is a decent number, to be habitual buyers of luxury could be across different classes of consumption. It could be watches, it could be footwear, it could be jewelry, it could of course be fashion, it could be automobiles, all of that, etc. I mean, I'll give you a small example. I was in one of the northern cities called Chandigarh. Beyond that, there is a very small city called Jammu. Jammu sells 11 Porsche cars. Now, in India, the Porsche is 2. In India, the Porsche costs 2.5x of the euro equivalent between the duties, all of that, etc. In a small city of Jammu, they are selling 12. In fact, last year they sold 170 Porsche cars in Jammu.
Wow.
And these are, incidentally, the dealer also mentioned, he says the loading up of the car, because then you do your own steering wheels and your own seat, all of that, is 40% higher than the base price of that car. So it's not the entry level car, it's not the Cayennes and all of that, etc. So I can go on and on, and
I would love you to go on and on, but okay.
But that's the big drama that's happening in India.
So basically, you're saying that the expansion is going to come from small cities that one would never think of. Is that it, or is there like anything else?
India is finding needles in a haystack. That's the challenge of India. I mean, there are markets which are, let's say, I don't know enough about Russia, I'm just making, but in the past, maybe there were 2 cities and you went to 2 cities and you could cover 90% of the potential luxury population. Okay, in India, that's not the case. You'll find in Jammu and in Lucknow and Coimbatore, and of course the big cities, the Mumbais and the Delhis and the Calcuttas and Chennais and all of that, etc. And if you create that customer access, I think the automobile guys have done a great job about it, because they have been at it, okay, since nearly the turn of the century. Most of them Mercedes-Benz, or Mercedes came in at that particular point of time. But yeah, you need to have very unique strategies across the different geographies in India.
Okay, big challenge for all the brands wanting to go to India. Okay,
but
I'm going to ask
also a barrier of entry. We love challenges, because challenges are then barriers of entry to others. You crack the code and it's yours.
And especially when you're around. Okay, last question for you, because there'll be many more in the Q&A, but this is what I'm going to leave you with today. How do you see, I mean, you've talked a lot, I've read a lot about what you've said, Darshan, about the market. You started off by saying, I don't like the word luxury, and then things have evolved since then. I thought that was quite interesting.
I still don't like the word luxury, but then.
All right. So why don't you tell us about how you see the difference or the confluence of the online space in luxury and the physical, because I think that's a big topic that you like to talk about, and I want to hear about it.
It goes back to your just the earlier question, that if I go back to Jammu as a market, and we have now luxury consumers in Jammu, but there is no environment in which to build a luxury store. So for me, online ends at creating what I call customer access. There is no wholesale business in India. There is no digital separate business, because India has the world's largest number of, you can rattle off the statistics from, 600 million internet users and, whatever, 850 million smartphones, all that kind of things. The big numbers are there. We are possibly the most digitally wired nation after maybe China in the world. And that's where China has a fair comparison. But that creates, what I call the online creates an access. And it's not just e-commerce. We also do something called distance selling. So selling through iPads from our stores. We invented that channel during COVID. 13% of my overall sales comes through, through distance selling. That means my staff holds iPads to customers who are frequent customers living in different cities, sometimes entire families. Okay, and then go around and then we'll DHL or send it to you on approval basis and bring it back. So,
but is that, sorry, just a
yeah.
quick question to that. Is that relevant for brands like the brands like Pottery Barn, Pret-a-Manger, or is that relevant for?
I'm talking luxury. I'm talking Valentino. I'm talking.
You're talking all luxury.
Yeah. I'm talking Valentino shoes. I mean, as an example, because and then it will be sent on what I call an approval basis. Okay, and then they'll do a big big sale. See, historically, rich people in India are used to getting everything from home. The tailor came home, the banker came home, the insurance guy came at home, so you wanted your doorstep. So this is not the customer. The luxury customer is not going to sit and add to the cart and swipe a card, etc. So what I call distance selling, we just invented that term, works easier, faster, more convenient, okay, also. But I'm just adding that channel. But coming back to your question on digital, it's omni-channel. It's my inventory sitting in my stores. You're also opening that inventory on time, real time to eyeballs all over the country. And because we have the last mile ecosystem of delivery, returns, payment gateways, all of that extremely well developed, it works beautifully, but it creates customer access. But other than that, if I remove distance selling or treat that as part of my quote unquote offline business, digital is 12-13% of my total sales, all my entire portfolio put together. But again, when I say digital, it is inventory being shipped finally from the stores. And every store is now designed also to look at not just footfalls, but also eyeballs that pop up in the screen from wherever.
That's very interesting, actually. That's interesting data, because I don't know how many people look at it from that point of view in terms of eyeballs.
Yeah, because our store staff is also incentivized. So they earn an incentive on the sale, which either even a courier comes and takes it off, because the algorithm send the eyeball here in terms of the zip code, proximity, or whatever else, etc., as much as the footfalls.
Okay, super. So thank you for that, and we'll come back to many more interesting things. We'll quickly go across to Philippe. Hello, Philippe. We can't hear you though. You're still on mute.
You're on mute, Philippe.
Philippe, we can't hear you. There you are.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, so Philippe is currently in India working on some very exciting projects. And Philippe, why don't you tell us, in your opinion, until now, which are the most successful luxury brands that have actually entered the Indian market? There could be Indian luxury brands that have started in India, or foreign brands coming in. Which ones do you think have succeeded in this space in India, and why?
I think, first of all, it's very complicated to give you really a rank. I would say the Indian adventure in luxury is completely new. I mean, it started long time ago for Hermes, which was a pioneer, but for the rest, I would say it's just starting a few years ago. If you take criteria like awareness, sales, social community, and that sort of things, then you have a ranking in 2023, which is starting with Hermes, Porsche, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Cartier, Gucci, and so on. So in fact, you find global luxury goods brands which are like in the Europe or in the US. So the ranking is not necessarily the same, but you find exactly the same brands. The problem is when you see the statistics made by Statista, Millward Brands, and so on, they mainly consider the global European brands. So Sabyasachi and that sort of brands are not part of, the ranking. So first, this ranking is not right. That's one. The second thing is you are in a B2B market of luxury. It's not a B2C. Branding is very small here. So the branded luxury market is something completely new. There's a lot of complexity in India. We're far away from China. Level of sophistication for luxury is a lot higher. It's even similar than in Europe. You have a lot of B2B. Level of quality is very much important, but also you have usage. If you take textile fashion, if you take jewelry, You have a lot of B2B players which are super strong, but they are local. Okay, they're not necessarily national. I know in jewelry, I know families in jewelry, they make 100 millions of euros per store. And in India, you talk quickly big figures. So I think it's very hard to tell you what is the most successful brand today. What I'm sure is that in 10 years, it will be completely different.
Okay, understand. So given your experience, because you've been working on retail and then you've been working on India, which product families do you think are most suited to the Indian market? Because in luxury, we have so many families. It could be leather goods, watches, jewelry, cars. So in your experience and looking at the way the market is evolving today, which would be like the key product families that one should focus on and for the next 5 years, let's say?
I think statistics are very different. If you take boutiques, if you take mall, I would say it's very much different. For sure, fragrance and cosmetic is a key category. Fashion, it really completely depends on the city. The level of tradition is playing a big impact. How much the city is conservative. What is the mix, between new generation and the conservative generation? There's a lot of complexity here, but fashion is growing fast. Jewelry is more complicated because there's a long tradition of jewelry with a lot of Indian B2B players. But I think jewelry has also a lot of potential because this country has a lot of sensitivity to handcrafting and so on, but they need to buy brands. So I would say mostly today the new generation is doing it. The older one it's more complicated. It's a very complex market. Geographically, it's as complex as the US. And the level of sophistication makes it even more complex. So the best categories, cosmetics, beauty, fashion for sure. Jewelry, there's a big opportunity also. But you need to understand a lot of local Indian behaviors, usage. You need to understand the Indian calendar, the annual calendar. There's a lot of festivals. There's a lot of things here. And culturally, it's a super strong country. I mean, I love this country. It's really one of my favorite because traditions, culture, I mean, this is a super strong. This is really, I mean, you can compare it with like you have different Japan markets, but really different. It's in terms of categories, everything has to be done. That's the good thing. Today, I mean, Bangalore, you cannot compare Bangalore with Mumbai or Delhi or any other city. It's completely different. Mumbai also is different. So
Right.
I think at the end, the category success will depend on where it is.
Okay, so geographical influence. All right.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I think what you've already answered one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, so we'll skip that. So in your opinion, being a French person and being a lover of India, which are the French brands, because I'm interested in that as well, which are the French brands you think have done well in the Indian market, in the luxury space, in terms of understanding the consumer, marketing themselves, spreading information, training? How would you share that with us?
I think if you look at the market, there's a lot of challenges. And I would say LVMH, Gucci, for example, they have clearly understood they really need to put the focus on training people, because I would say the branded customer experience is something completely new for the market. So that's really something key. You need to develop a front, and that's something very important for if you want the brand to be developed. And that's something that I would say that the most solid, robust brands have developed very consequently. And the second thing I see, for example, you've seen the Joe big event in India that has been, very impressive event. It has been oriented with a very strong bridge with the Indian culture and the Indian heritage, and that's the way the brands should do. Okay, that's really the way it has to be played. Or you can also see Bulgaria also playing with festivals and some Indian symbols, which are very strong in the culture. That's also a very interesting way to play this market.
So you're saying basically that no matter how entrenched a French brand is, at some point it has to adapt to the local culture, even for a very high-end luxury brand. I'll quickly come to a question, Philippe. It's not on the list of questions I asked you, but I'm interested in this. For example, I was reading somewhere that the luxury brand, the salespeople now, or the staff in the stores, how would you approach the fact that they need to speak in local languages? I mean, is there those kind of things? Are they very very important part of the training? Like, how would you train them in terms of the discourse of the brand? Do they speak exactly as the brand says, or do they adapt their discourse to the customer who might come from a village in Punjab? Or how does that? I'm very curious, because that's a big question, isn't it, for luxury brands who have such strong training manuals, and how to use the language. How do you see that?
I would say about this, I would say it's quite similar than in China. So that's exactly the same solution. So yes, you can have different languages, Indian languages in the store. That's possible. But if you look at our own stores in India, to tell you the truth, I would say 70% of our customers are foreigners. Okay, so it is as much as important for the sales team to know Arabic, to know English, of course, even to know French and Italian than another language in India.
Okay, very interesting. So basically a lot with talent and all that. So perfect moment for us to jump to Anchal. So we're going to switch to the other topic, which is basically, talking about talent, talking about the ecosystem, which is the big gap that a lot of brands need to fill when we think about India. So Anchal, a quick question to you, because I'm also very interested in that, coming from an Indian background, having studied in the same school as you and Darshan. The customer, how do we define the luxury customer in India? Or is that even correct to think of as a question?
In one word, I would say ready. Luxury is not new to India. Luxury is very old. We are known to luxury. Even a small village lady would be wearing gold jewelry. But forget that. I think the important thing, because what we are discussing is global luxury brand, global branded luxury in India. Now, Darshan offered a number which I believe totally. My estimation was also in the similar range of 10 million consumers. Now, we forget about the numbers for the moment. It's very large, and please remember the GDP growth is very quick. But more than that, the discretionary income available to the luxury consumer in India is going to grow faster than the GDP, that surplus. So, I mean, one thing that Darshan said makes total sense. I mean, to partner with people who can see the future. This luxury is a way of life for these 10 million people. But the problem is that there are very different behaviors. Not just because of the different culture differences and tradition differences, but the fact that there are different sources of wealth. Now, the old money in India is used to global luxury brands, and global luxury brands are used to talking to them, conversing with them. Where the problem is the other sources, the corporate money. The corporate money means the millennials and now even Gen Zs are traveling all over the world. And they are engaging with the luxury brands very differently. So that is a very interesting source of wealth. And the third, I think the most important for India is the good old family business, which is mostly in small towns. Now, in the last decade and a half, we've seen tremendous growth and wealth coming to the family businesses. And these are mostly in small towns. Darshan talked about Jammu. It's not a surprise. I mean, all the small towns are filled with wealth, which is with the family business. Now, all these different sources of wealth, and add to that the new money, thanks to all the startup entrepreneurial culture. But also, let's not forget about around the metro cities, all the wealth that has been accumulated thanks to the sale of land. Now, all these sources, all these segments behave very differently. Not just in terms of their behavior with luxury, but also their experience journeys. They're totally different.
Right.
Their engagement with the brand is totally different. And, their product affinity is totally different. That's still a black box. I'm sure RBL has more knowledge on this than the others, since they are already pan-India digitally and with a retail footprint. But this is really a black box.
So, Anshul, so I'm going to...
of the consumer. Yeah.
So I'm going to jump to the next question, because you're almost at the help of answering the next question. So basically, when you're saying that the customer or the consumer itself is in the situation of being extremely varied, wealth coming from different sources, and so on and so forth, that brings me to the question of the ecosystem, right? So, so the customer.
Yeah, Usha, I'm not saying they're varied. They're not at all varied. They are actually aspiring for luxury. But there are
no, varied, as in with a V, not with a W.
Varied, yes, varied.
Yeah.
With very peculiar experience journeys. Yes, absolutely.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Like, for example, the small town luxury consumers have relatively lesser brush with luxury brands. Digital access is one thing, but what about the conversation directly with the brands?
So that's what I'm coming to in terms of the ecosystem. So basically, my question to you would be like, how do you see the evolution of the entire ecosystem, which means the conversation with the brands, which means even the kind of products that are being developed, which means the kind of retail experience, the advertising experience. How do you see that, and where do you see that going? What happens in that ecosystem?
Well, the access to the smaller towns is going to take a physical access is going to take a long time. I think, again, Darshan would be able to answer this better, but RBL certainly is at the forefront of this expansion of luxury-worthy malls or experiences, retail experiences. And with the Geo World Plaza, I'm hoping that we will see other developers also getting spurred into action and, creating a larger footprint in the country that is worthy of housing the luxury brand. But what really is missing in India is the department stores, and I'll explain you why. Department stores that can house luxury brand, worthy of housing luxury brand, that's totally missing. Maybe Galerie Lafayette's entry later this year will change something, but let me explain why this is important. I still find a lot of hesitation in a large chunk of consumers in small towns in pushing the door of exclusive, large, intimidating shops of the top luxury house. In fact, for a lot of them, the first true uninhibited, close relationship or engagement with the luxury brands comes in places like La Valle Village. But this whole journey is not understood from where they are to when they travel to Delhi or Mumbai or to Paris or to Dubai and back. And in this process, what is happening? It's a black box. And this is what I'm hoping with the research that we are starting on at Val-More to understand exactly this aspect, and hope to be ready by end of September. But in the meantime, I think department stores can help correct that.
Okay.
Because it provides an environment which is more comfortable for the consumers to engage with the luxury brands. Now, there is another reason why this is important, because there the discovery of smaller, more lesser known bridge to luxury brands can also happen for the consumer.
Right.
Because otherwise they have no opportunity not to present to the consumer or for the consumers to discover them in the country. This will actually create a very long-term sustainable glide path to a healthy luxury relationship.
Okay.
On the talent side, and I think just rewinding back, I think it's also very important that while access is limited to digital access, and when they travel to physically to, let's say, Delhi, Mumbai, or one of the international travels, a direct communication, building brand desirability amongst them, automobile has done a good job because it is possible. But there are all the other consumer segments which are very complicated. So if not access, at least a dialogue, a conversation, this will also reduce the hesitation and build desirability. But coming to talent, I think over the decades, with now the allied industries becoming very mature, like airlines, hospitality, housing, retail, accessing talent, acquiring talent is not as complex as it used to be. High quality general management talent has always been available in India. And I think our business schools, the IIMs, etc., have been suppliers of top general management talent for the world. Some of the biggest brands in the world, now including even luxury, and in France as well. What is missing, actually, what has been missing until now, is an appreciation or luxury management. And I think this is what we corrected a few years ago, 4 years ago to be precise, at least at IIM Ahmedabad, which has taken leadership in this area, with offering of second-year elective in this space. So now, and as someone who's been directly involved in this, I can tell you the interest amongst each successive batch has been growing in the industry tremendously. So this is also good news for the industry.
Good. Anchal, I'm going to ask, we have about 20 minutes. I want to ask you one last question before I open the Q&A, because I'm sure that lots of people waiting to ask questions.
Yeah.
Just touch very quickly on the next generation customer in India, because we're very curious. India is such a young country, we know that. So what's going to happen with that generation, the kids who are like 18, 20 right now? What's going to happen with them in the next 5 years when they come into the market as luxury consumers?
Before I go to the Gen Z and the kids that are 18 and 20, let me talk about the Alpha generation, born after 2010. Okay, there are 300 million of them already, and they are born to millennials. The millennials today, they have 70% of the household income. They contribute to 70% of the household income in India. And these are the guys who have a very comfortable, more comfortable relation. Amongst them, the luxury consumers have a far more comfortable relationship with luxury. So this Alpha generation is going to already be introduced to luxury as they grow up. And by the time they grow up, India's GDP, as well as the discretionary surplus, will be tremendous. So we are waiting for that bonanza to come in. That is for certain we are going to see it in the next 10 years. Okay?
Right.
But even as we speak now, the millennials and the Gen Zs, there are enough of them, 700 million to be precise. But amongst them, if we whittle down to the luxury consumers, we will find that the Gen Z, more and more Gen Zs have luxury aspirations. In fact, Darshan will confirm that it's easier to source talent amongst the Gen Z because of the natural aspiration. So they have a aspiration for luxury. Millennials, on the other hand, are the ones with corporate money. You know, and their relationship, therefore, is healthy. Yeah.
Right.
But common to both of them is this definite shift from a conformist behavior to individualist behavior. Now, from that perspective, I think for the brands, for the luxury brands, is very interesting because it means that these guys are far more confident of their choices and brands and their style brand. Okay.
Yeah.
Which means that their discovery is now very often starting with product and not the brand. So even the relationship with luxury is not limited to just logo anymore, which is a sign of maturing market. I think this is very good news.
Super. Okay. Wonderful. And I'm sure. So thank you. I wish we could do this for three times more the time that we have, but we have another 15 minutes or so to open up questions. So there are about 40 people in the room right now. So if anybody wants to ask questions, we'll go with you. Just unmute yourself. I can't control it from here. I don't know how to do it. So just be very polite, unmute yourself and ask the person the question that you want to ask. It's up to you now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking questions. So let's go to the audience. Anyone? We can also ask questions in France. I can see Arushi. Go ahead, Arushi.
Hi, Usha.
Hi.
What a lovely morning with such a elite group of people. So thrilled to be here.
Introduce yourself very quickly, Arushi, because you have an interesting background. Very quickly.
Yes. So hi, I'm Arushi. I'm based from Paris as well. I have worked in retail for 15 years now here, having worked with Galeries Lafayette, many other international brands, currently working with Uniqlo, and I look after their omni-channel services for Europe. So I have a question for Darshan because, of course, you know, you're a retail man. So I picked up on your insight on 30% of your sales coming from iPad. And so I was going to ask you, are you going to make it a bit more sophisticated in lines with live shopping or something in lines with shopping at distance with, you know, getting software or tech in, or you already have that in place was my question actually.
So there's a difference between live shopping, which works like a charm, I'm told, in China, but has multiple times been tried and been a bit of a disaster because the whole rule book there is very different. We pick up an influencer or a celebrity or whatever, etc., and it's a short duration, quick to market, etc. Distance shopping, as we call it, is basically essentially couch shopping. You sit on your couch and started. It was very serendipitous journey during COVID because the stores were dark and we just sent staff to make sure that the air conditioning off, the products are not damaged, etc., etc. But the customers who were trapped inside their homes kept on calling them up, and that's how it led. And then, of course, we have improvised the entire journey in a large way in terms of the acoustics, audio, the backend software, how it does all of that, etc., etc. Because it started off in a very transactional way, but now we are doing to scale. So it's been, as I said, there wasn't an enormous design. It's just through serendipity that we chanced on it. We thought that post-COVID going away, okay, and people coming out, it will fall off. Strangely, people got hooked to that habit. Also keep in mind that we have a unique offering because we have very often the man and the woman on the same half an hour shopping for Valentino and Xenia, and we have both the brands as example. So we can move our iPads, across all of that. We also have the world's cheapest and the most robust data. So things don't, so the whole conversation piece is very, very easy. So there are multiple things that going at the back of it. But yeah, I think it's a channel here to stay. And we are now doing it better. And of course, the last mile delivery, because it's still not a confirm. You're not swiping a card at the end of it, etc. You just have merchandise coming home, and then maybe sometimes if it's a big order, someone will accompany that and then come back, etc. But it was just an example of what you do unique to a particular, particular society. I'm sure China have discovered, they have these couriers who go elsewhere and shop and aggregate and come back, whatever, there's a name for it, but different things work for different jobs.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'm going to go to the next question. We have Revati online who wants to ask a question. So Revati, please come online, introduce yourself very quickly and ask the question you want to the person you're targeting.
Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Hi, my name is Revati Dani, and I'm actually a MSc Marketing, Luxury and Design Management student in Paris. So actually, I just recently graduated from ICN Business School. And my question to you is that in terms of career opportunities, what are the main differences between working in luxury market in France versus working in India? And are there any specific skill sets that one needs to, cater to, or which are more valued in the market in France versus in India?
I think I'm going to let Philippe answer that question because he's got experience in France and in India. He would be the right person to answer. Philippe, what do you think? I'm sure a lot of people in this room want to ask you that question. So go for it.
Thank you for the question. I think there is one big difference, and it will be about clienteling and all the data and the client focus, the client segmentation you need to do, because in fact there's a lot of different customer segments, even in one city, even in one district. And they will be very keen to come or not at all, according to their social level or their level of conservatism or their cultural level, or, they travel. And we have clients, they travel every month in Paris and they come to our store in Paris. So it's really, and they will never go in a store in their city. So there's a lot of different behaviors, a lot different than in Europe. If you are in Paris, you have foreigners coming. They used to go in the store, they used to go in department stores. So I would say it's quite easy. And then you can apply in a very standard way, your selling ceremony and all that stuff. And I would say for the rest in India, that you will need to play it a lot differently. However, what will be common is about marketing, probably digital. That sort of things will be something shared between the two geographies.
Yes,
Okay.
and I just want to follow up with one more experience, if you don't mind. So I have actually applied in lots of the groups like LVMH, Gucci, Kering, and so actually I came across one problem statement even though these brands are very international, but while hiring talent, they look for people who are native French. Like I've seen in the job description that they put the term native French, even though you have a good French level, but most of the the brands are hiring for native French. So that was a bit of problem statement for the candidates, because we come from international backgrounds, and even the big brands are catering to international the market, but still why do the brands have this native French?
Revati, I'm going to answer that question to you because I think there are a lot of other people who I'll come back to you on that very quickly. I think today it's not just a question about the language, it's also understanding the brand's culture. And a lot of that is to do with the language. I know what you mean. Because, thank you, Philippe. I know what you mean because I do get a lot of resumes myself for my company. And it's not just a question of whether I speak French or not. It's just a question of how much time have you spent understanding the culture and the language, which is part of the culture. So it's true that in the beginning you see that and it's very off-putting because you don't understand it. But I think what the companies are trying to say that it takes a certain number of months, and in France and I'm sure Italy and a lot of these companies that have very strong luxury brands, which do have these luxury brands because of the culture that they have. They've spent a lot of time investing in that, and it takes time for young students and people who come to the country in the first couple of months to integrate into that. So once you've done that, you've already crossed the first hurdle, and I'm sure the problems will get easier. So I'm going to switch to the next question, which is from Siddharth, please. So Siddharth.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Siddharth.
I'm Siddharth. I have experience with distribution of brands in Maharashtra. I've been doing that for the last 20 years now. now manufacturing OEM for some brands. My question is, we've seen during COVID that luxury brands have actually spiked during the sales of luxury brands spiked during COVID because the well-heeled travelers were not able to travel, so they splurged on luxury products. Now, we are seeing the Middle East areas going to war. There are warlike situations. In situations where there's disturbance, how do we see luxury spending or behavior of the luxury customer happening during such times?
I think maybe Darshan should answer that question because he's probably in touch with so many luxury brands who would be able to share some of this feedback on a board level and might have some information for us on that.
Well, I guess there are two questions. So first question, if I may simplify the question, is the spike that we saw in what we call trapped customers because people could travel within the country but not outside. With COVID behind us, has that waned and have people gone back to, so what I call the re-export of the demand back to India, has it gone away? Answer is no. Three things happened. The people who traditionally only shopped abroad were very pleasantly surprised with three things. So the first fallacy that broke in the mind is Indian brands are priced much higher than, let's say, a referral market like Dubai. So this is an open point to note that to all and sundry, because I'm here to destroy fallacies, to say Louis Vuitton trolley bag, I'm just taking that as an example, or a duffel bag, 11% more expensive in Dubai than in India. Please check this out. You can go online and otherwise. So straight off. So we basically say this is a legacy of the past. Second is that in India, you don't get the wide choice, okay, of assortment or the latest choice, and they were all very pleasantly discovered otherwise. And the third point is that service. In India, we are traditionally a very high service industry, as you know, as a country. Even if you go to a small restaurant, the levels of service, hospitality, airline, all of that, etc. So they were amazed by the level of service in the theater, as I call, of luxury that they discovered. And in parallel, there is a bit of a self-goal that the Western world did, because you are braving atrocious weather and standing in queues, although you are technically a luxury buyer, not because, thank you, not because there are too many people inside the store, but there are too little staff to help you. That's why there are queues outside. Doesn't happen in India. So long story short, they discovered the joy of shopping in India, and as the Indian phrase goes, the tiger tasted blood and never went back. So we've seen a lot of re-export that has happened, okay, in India. Also, as you become from sporadic to more habitual buyers, okay, of luxury, okay, to that extent, you're not going to postpone that purchase unless it's a one-off Loro Piana bag or something that's not available in the country, okay, just for your next trip somewhere, okay. Now you talked a second question of basically saying if there is some degree of fluidity because of a warlike situation to what happens. Of course, tourism suffers, people want to stay away. Friends in Dubai do say that the beginning of this year, last year, December, early, has been a bit of weak market because people, although let's say Dubai is far away from whatever is happening, but the sentiment is a bit beaten down and people worry about that. But I can only speak on behalf of India. Then increasingly people are shopping. Anchal mentioned Jio World Plaza. Every time we have a new center that is open. So Gucci opened the third store in Mumbai city at the Jio World Plaza. They have a store in Trident Hotel. They have a store in Palladium. And I have statistics to prove that both those stores since 1st November, when the third store opened in Jio World Plaza, in the 5 months, November to March, continue to have double-digit growth. So there hasn't been cannibalization. So the phrase that I use is in India, supply creates a demand and not the other way around, as is seen in the Western world. So you put it out there and you suddenly see a new spring well of luxury and you wonder what were these people doing earlier, etc. So hopefully that answers the question, Siddharth.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Darshan. Siddharth, we just have time for one last question, I think. So I'll go to Mahi. Mahi, please come on and ask your question, and let's see who's going to reply.
I'll just quickly introduce myself. It's for everyone who spoke today. Thank you so much for that. But my name is Mahi, and I live and work in Paris in a tiny consulting firm that focuses on luxury. And what I really liked is what you guys also talked about. You talked about segmentation and understanding the experience, but the root problem is that there's also a lot of research that still needs to be done, and that's something that's been happening. So from a research point of view, because to give a little context, we recently have sort of built this side project that I'm heading, which is to start understanding the Indian luxury market, but more from a research perspective and a think tank perspective within the consulting firm itself. And I wanted to know, it's a bit open-ended, but what you think if you could build on the fact that we need more research, which avenue you would take to get into that, or what are the points that we need to focus
Okay,
on?
I'm going to pass on. We are absolutely online with Anchal on this. So Anchal, I'll let you take this on because this is something we talk about practically every day. Can't hear you. You're on mute, Anchal.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you for that question. Good to meet you, Mahi. I missed the last part because your voice was a little choppy.
I was just saying, from a research perspective, what would you touch upon for a French company trying to understand the Indian market?
Yeah, I'll tell you what we are embarking on doing, and anyone who's seriously interested in research, please don't be shy in reaching out to me. We will need more hands on deck, but I can tell you of tremendous interest to us is this differentiated experience journey for the different consumer groups I spoke about, and the resultant differential behavior and the product affinity. I think besides automobile, maybe watches, jewelry, it's a little bit of a black box. So if we are able to put our fingers on that pulse, I think we would have understood far more of the luxury consumer in India. And that's what we are going to focus.
Okay, I'm going to ask one last question because I think we have 2 minutes more and I'd like to give the floor to one last person. Who would that be? Ashok. Ashok, I don't know where you are, but...
I am somewhere in the middle of the highways, but okay, anyway.
Great.
Hello, everyone. My question is, I lived in France, so I know very much about French, but I also witnessed in France, in Saint-Raphael or in Saint-Tropez, all the Riviera areas. I see many, let's say, many branded shops, prevailing there. So can we see this similar thing happening in India, for example, in Pondicherry, where the huge touristic crowd is there, and there's what about that? I mean, that is a big question I wanted to ask.
I'll ask Philippe as a French in India what he thinks of that.
Yes, please, Philippe.
I think my friend Anchal will probably better answer that to me because he has a lot of data on that and he will explain that in detail. But to tell you the truth, yes, the small cities have a lot of potential. And again, coming back to what my friend Darshan was saying, over the 1 million, you have the 100,000 who are spending a hell on jewelry, on luxury, on cars, maybe a lot more than compared to other countries. And they also travel within India in certain areas. So it's good to be in that sort of areas. So yes, Anchal.
Anchal, you have 30 seconds before I close the floor and say...
I can answer in 10 seconds. No, I don't think there is enough consumers traveling to Pondicherry, and I think India is a market for luxury to be consumed where they are. And for now, I think it's going to be a long time before we see shops in Pondicherry.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want Benedict, who's the president of the chamber, to come and say a quick word to everybody. Thank you from my side. Lovely seeing all of you. I'm in Paris. Anybody wants to reach out, send me a mail, contact us. Thank you, Philippe, Darshan, Anchal. Hope to see you very soon. And Benedict, just a last word to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much to give me the word, Usha, and thank you for organizing it. Of course, a big thanks to all our Swiss speakers, Darshan, Anchal, and Philippe. more than happy if what we discovered today helps understanding what is the luxury market in India for French company. And the reverse is also available to check. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon in another webinar or whatever kind of things organized by the Chamber of Commerce. Just to let you know that we will celebrate our 14th anniversary in Paris at the Duquesne School. And if you're interested, please come. We will be very happy to meet you there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.